Yeah, so let us go forth. We're going to open up the informational meeting on right to repair and ask that I'm going to speak from up here, folks. I had knee replacement, and just to do the back and forth, I'm going to stay right here. But I'm going to ask just to ask Charlie Fisher, Kyle, is it Weens? Yes, Kyle Weens and Stephen Nickel to just join up on the panel here. And I just really wanted to start out to say that I appreciate this opportunity to share some updated information. It's the whole purpose of this meeting. This is a bill concept that has been brought forward. This is the fourth time that it will have come forward. The last three, I have been involved with this policy. I'm very excited about, we have a really big coalition that has worked on this bill since the end of session, really looked at how there's other states that have come forward that have passed policy. We know that not only do Americans want this policy and want right to repair. If they feel they own something, they want to be able to repair it and have that freedom of choice. But we also know that 70% of Oregonians that have been surveyed, and those are Oregonians that are Democrat, Republican, independent, non-affiliated, say if we own it, we should have the ability to have it fixed to where we seek to do that. And so this policy really has been on the 5 points that I just want to mention, just to kind of give a quick thing, is about saving families money, first and foremost. It's about supporting small business, small Oregon businesses. It's reducing the e-waste. It's cutting pollution, because 85% of that energy even produce, coming for is in the manufacturing of like the cell phone. And then closing the digital divide. We want to make sure that we are making opportunities that folks can maybe perhaps look at, when we had disruptions in the supply chain, how can folks get equipment that they may need for school, for work, into the hands of those that maybe are our most vulnerable Oregonians at a reasonable price. And so those are really the guiding things that have really worked on this policy that I've worked for, and I'm really proud to have Courtney, Representative Courtney Neron, work on this as well. And again, I don't want to mention all the folks that every week have joined us on these calls, really coming together to say, what was that policy that we put forward before? Do we need changes? And we also really took the opportunity to listen to manufacturers. And it wasn't just about listening to them, but it was about bringing them to a table, and bringing them to a table that together we could come up with solutions. And I just want to say that it's very exciting to have Google here presenting. They have very much been at the table, coming forth with a larger group to come up with these solutions. And I understand that some manufacturers have different policies that they put in place, and they don't tend to want public meetings, and they don't tend to want to come and put things in public record and such like that. And I really think that's a detriment to the process, because we know that collaboration and the type of that communication can lead to good, strong policy. And I think that's what we have here, is something that I'm very proud of, and because of that work, and because of we want it to be a model piece of policy that other states, as we know, there's 20 some other states that are working on a right to repair concept of some form, and we want them to point to Oregon to say, this is the policy that can work for us. So that's why it's been great to have not only those advocates, but to have manufacturers come on board and really provide us that feedback of what they would need to make this bill work for them. And I'll say that, we got 95% there. I think we have really solid movement with this. So with that, what I want to do is open this up to really kind of go over and through the changes that we have made in this bill, and again, having Google be able to present to how they got involved and why they got involved is great. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Charlie Fisher, and please.
Sure. Um, Thanks for having me, Chair Solomon, members of the committee. My name is Charlie Fisher. I'm the state director at OSPERG. We're a statewide public interest group, and we've been leading a coalition on right to repair and really having a lot of these conversations with manufacturers and others about how to craft a policy that works in Oregon and that works for Oregonians. And so basically, I'm just going to walk through the main changes and differences between the 2023 bill and the bill that's going to be introduced this session. And there are kind of 6 primary differences between the California bill that passed last year and the bill in Oregon. So, well, Kyle will talk more about this, but there have been 4 states that have passed some form of right to repair basically in the last 13 months: New York, California, Colorado, and Minnesota. And so we've looked at all those states, but California kind of being most recent and really being the result of some of the most robust negotiations and conversations between advocates and manufacturers. We really looked to that state for a lot of what we incorporated into this bill. And so, again, there are kind of 6 main provisions. I'm going to walk through each of them and explain how they were incorporated into the bill. And 4 of them we adopted essentially without change. The other 2 we decided, based on reasons I'll explain, to incorporate certain parts and not others. So let me just start with the easy ones. The first is enforcement. So originally, I think as you remember, the bill had a private right of action that would have allowed consumers to bring suit against manufacturers in court. That went through a lot of different iterations. We decided, for a variety of reasons, that to remove that and replace it with enforcement by the Attorney General. And so this is now similar in enforcement to California. So that's 1. 2, we clarified some of the language around kind of data security protections. So the intent of the bill was never to require manufacturers to disclose tools that would allow a third party to essentially access a phone without authorization, hack into it, in other words. Based on feedback that we received, we incorporated language to clarify that manufacturers are not required to provide any tool or software that would allow third parties to override an anti-theft security mechanism on consumer electronic equipment. And so that was basically just language we took from California and put into this bill. We also, so that's 2. Number 3 was expanding protections for intellectual property. There's already language in there to protect intellectual property. So in addition to that, we added language that protects licensing intellectual property, including copyrights or patents. So basically just expanded the language a little bit to say not just intellectual property, but licensing it, copyrights, and patents. Again, that was language just taken directly from California and that got support from a number of manufacturers. Finally, I guess finally among the easy section, so one of the differences in Oregon from the California bill broadly was it has a section that requires third-party repair businesses to get certification, and before working on someone's device, it requires them to give notification to consumers about best practices for data security. We kept that because we think it's important, and then added something from California that essentially requires third-party repair shops to notify consumers ahead of time if they're going to use parts that aren't authorized by the manufacturer. So essentially, if they get, when you go to the dealer or you go to the car mechanic, you can choose to get the OEM battery or just a third-party battery. Typically, they'll tell you which one you're getting, and they'll let you choose. This just requires third-party shops to do that same thing in your phone or in your computer. They have to tell you ahead of time what parts they're putting in there, which basic consumer protection, but wanted to add that in there just to make sure that people felt comfortable. So those are the 4 basically same changes. And then the 2 that were a little bit different from California, and I'll explain why. But we did incorporate pieces, I think the spirit of parts from California in both of these. The first is a look-back period for covered devices. So let me explain. The bill last session was silent on how far back the policy would look. So essentially, no device, or any device, no matter how old, would be covered as long as the manufacturer was offering repairs on it to consumers, so whether 15, 20 years old. If they were offering repairs, then they had to offer the same parts, tools, information to everyone else. We took language from California to create a limit on that so-called look back. So for smartphones specifically, the law will only apply for products first manufactured after July 1st, 2021. So what that means is any a product line that first is debuted before July 1st, 2021 for smartphones specifically would not be covered by this product or by this bill. That's exactly what California had. We did depart a little bit from California for the other products that are in the bill. So like computers, home appliances. We created a look back, but pushed it a little bit further back to July 1st, 2015. So about 10 years from when the bill will basically be implemented. The reason for that was we talked to businesses and nonprofits that take these products in and refurbish them or fix them. And they say that about the oldest product they get for appliances and for computers is about 10 years. We talked to Free Geek specifically, and if you're not familiar, they're a nonprofit that takes in a lot of old electronics, refurbishes them, gives them access to low-income folks who need access to technology. And oftentimes the products that they're refurbishing are not the brand new ones. They're ones that people are donating or discarding. And they would really lose a lot of ability to do that good work if we just set the look back to 2021 for computers. So that's what we decided on for the look back period. And then finally, and Kyle is going to talk more about this, but I'll just mention it briefly, is addressing an issue of parts pairing. So the parts pairing, just briefly, is a anti-consumer practice that means that even if you have the original parts and service manual from the manufacturer, you can still be locked out of completing the repair because some manufacturers pair the various component parts of a device to the main computer in the device itself. So basically this results in manufacturers still having total control over repair and removing many of the benefits of right to repair. Now the 2023 bill did address this issue, but in a way that in conversations with stakeholders we heard was a little bit overly broad and may have led to unintended consequences. So we decided to narrow it to prohibit parts pairing when it would, and this is language that we inserted, would cause the device to operate with reduced functionality or performance or create unnecessary, misleading, or undismissible alerts or warnings about unidentified parts. So again, it was always intended to address this issue, but based on feedback, we decided to really specifically narrow in on parts pairing. And again, I think both Google and Kyle can talk more about that. But that's the totality of the differences. For the most part, the core of giving folks access to what they need to repair their stuff is still there. And happy to answer any questions.
Let's listen from the panel really quickly, just because we're on the time.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, please.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee, for having me. My name is Kyle Wiens. I'm the CEO and co-founder of iFixit. I am a Oregon native. I grew up in Bend, working at a Apple authorized repair shop starting when I was 14, fixing things all the way through. So I have a lot of experience tinkering with these things, seeing limitations that have been put in by manufacturers. iFixit is the most popular online repair destination. 1 in 10 Oregonians used iFixit to learn how to fix something last year. It might have been a smartphone. It might have been a skateboard. We have information for all kinds of things. Our mission is to enable everybody to fix things. We really want to empower and embolden a repair economy where the default activity is to fix things. Right now, about 3% of employment is people in the repair sector. I think the economy would be a lot better if we had more people in the repair sector, more people fixing things. We'd be less dependent on mining and manufacturing overseas, and we'd have more of a Main Street. You think about what is Main Street in, I don't know, Boring, Oregon. There's probably a car repair shop. It would sure be nice if there was a TV and a camera and a smartphone repair shop, and we'd like to see that again. So at iFixit, we're building a repair ecosystem. We put repair information online, we sell parts, we sell tools, and we look at what it takes to actually fix something, and then what are the barriers. What are the things that get in the way? And repair is very simple. Either you fix it or you replace it. And so sometimes it's as simple as get their service information out there. Sometimes it's like, I can't get the part, or the part's too expensive when we work on that. Sometimes there's a special screwdriver bit that you have to have. iPhones have a special 5-pointed screwdriver bit that Apple wasn't selling until recently. Now the latest trend is a software lock. And so my formal background, I'm a software engineer. And so the latest thing that is happening is you have all of the parts inside a device have a microchip on it, and then the main brain of the phone or the computer, whatever else, also has a microchip, and each of those have a linkage to each other based on the serial number. So if I go and I buy 2 brand new iPhone 15s and I swap the screens, I have an Apple screen on my brand new iPhone 15, I have another one with an Apple screen. If I swap the parts between them, I don't get full functionality anymore. There's no way to make that work. And this is new. This is a novel innovation that is actually setting the world back a little bit. I mean, interchangeable parts have been a fundamental component of modern life. The interchangeable parts were actually an innovation around the time of the Civil War. Before that, if you had 2 rifles, you wanted to swap the barrels, you couldn't because they were hand machined. They were different. The idea that we have standardized components that can be swapped has enabled a huge amount of reuse. Charlie mentioned Free Geek in Portland. They'll take in hundreds of laptops, and half of them will be broken, and so they'll take the parts out of the broken ones, they use it to fix some others, and they end up with a bunch of laptops that work. This parts pairing or parts serialization, where the parts are specifically paired to each other, is a way to kind of sabotage that ecosystem. So if you think about it from the perspective of like repair in the recycling world, it's an ecosystem. We have nutrients. So think about how it works in the forest. You have a tree that grows in the forest. It grows leaves and needles, and those leaves, when the tree is done using them, they descend under the forest canopy, and then you have an ecosystem of critters, ants, and microbes that break that down, turn it into nutrients that go back into the ecosystem, and the tree is able to use that again. What companies that serialize parts, pair parts together, they're basically poisoning the leaves. They're saying this leaf can only be managed in the ecosystem by the manufacturer. And it's a relatively rare situation. We only see a few manufacturers using this now, but I can tell you as a software engineer, it's really, really easy to put these kind of locks in place where you tie things together. We've found serialized parts in chainsaws, which is important to me because I wouldn't be here today without a chainsaw. I drove over from Bend and the tree fell and we had to chainsaw our way through Highway 20 to get here. We have found these serialized locks in Xboxes and PlayStations. The CD drive is cryptographically linked. But the most common case, and the thing that's really harming Oregon businesses, is with the iPhone. Increasingly, with every generation of the iPhone, Apple has started cryptographically linking these things. So if I swap the screen, I don't get full functionality. The latest in the iPhone 15, they have the fancy face sensing technology that detects what you look like. That's using a LiDAR, a laser sensor. That LiDAR is now locked to the individual phone and you can't swap it. And so as an aftermarket parts company, I want to be able to sell these parts and make them available. I can't. And so our customers have these challenges every day. So that's the main fix that we're looking for here. And that's I think the text that we have in this bill will solve that issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Nickel, and I lead Google's repair operations across our hardware portfolio. Thank you, Chairwoman Solomon, for the opportunity to be here today to share Google's perspective on this really important issue. I want to start by expressing Google's support for LC 111 that will be introduced. We applaud Chairwoman Solomon's efforts in advancing a common sense repair bill that should serve as a model for other states. And we believe that this legislation represents an inclusive compromise that brings together tech companies, repair companies, environmental leaders, legislators as well, to find common ground for the repair movement. It provides a victory for consumers who want affordable repair options, for the environment and its emphasis on sustainability, and for companies that believe repairability truly does matter to us all. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This is at the core of the work that my team and I do as well, and it has shaped how we have built repair capabilities for our devices. Simply put, we strive to make repair universally accessible and useful for our customers. Let me discuss each of these elements further. First, accessibility. For us, this means establishing repair operations close to where our customers live and work. We do this by partnering with independent repair providers across the US, where customers can walk in and receive same-day support. Second, usefulness. Repair must be easy enough for anyone to do, technicians, do-it-yourselfers, you and I. This requires that as manufacturers, we design products in a manner that enables simple, safe, and reliable repairs wherever and by whomever they are done. This is what we call design for serviceability. Pixel products are designed to last many years in a variety of demanding environments. With the 7 years of software support that we provide, Pixel is also the longest supported smartphone available. However, our phones are designed with an increasing array of complex components to enable ever greater computing power. This means that asking designers to consider how to take apart and reassemble devices efficiently and with a minimum of parts requires a real dialogue across our engineering team. While we still have more work to do, I believe we have made meaningful progress in reconciling the intricacy of design with the simplicity of repair, and I'd like to share some examples with you. First, repair parts. We ensure the parts for our phones are accessible to the public through our partnership with iFixit. We also do not require burdensome and restrictive parts pairing, meaning that a properly installed screen or battery will work no matter who performs the repair. This accessibility is table stakes as far as we are concerned, and it enables small businesses and local repairers to thrive and grow. Next, tools. We have consistently reduced the cost and number of repair tools required and made them available online for anyone to purchase. In parallel, we continue to work toward our serviceability design vision of fixtureless repairs, the idea that you can repair your device with tools from your kitchen drawer or your garage workbench. Lastly, instructions. We redesigned our repair manuals so it's easier for repairers to use them, and we plan to continue to upload manuals for previous and future devices going forward. We believe this work aligns well with Google's mission and with the best interests of our customers. I'd like to leave you with a broader vision for repairability that we might all share. Let's reclaim the closets, the drawers in our homes that serve as our personal technology museums by giving all those devices second chances as hand-me-downs or as donations to amazing nonprofits like Free Geek in Portland, which I visited the last time I was here. In closing, I believe this opportunity is quite similar to what Oregon achieved by introducing our nation's first auto bill legislation and serving as the model for similar laws implemented in other states. By working together now to pass this right to repair legislation, you can build on those same goals of sustainability, reuse, and waste elimination that you pioneered for us all back then. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Just check in with folks about questions.
I have a question.
You had a question too?
I have a question too. So do you use parts pairing?
We do not. So the challenge for us when we looked at this, it was a challenge that we encountered as well when we launched our phones. And so again, as I mentioned in my comments, we really believe in the importance of accessibility to repair. And when we encountered this situation, we had to bring together our entire engineering team and say, if we were to do this, we've broken the entire model of independent repair providers whom we work with. We've broken that model down and we've made it where a customer will not have a working device. It wasn't easy. We had to work with our engineering teams to come up with a solution, and we did. We make software available online so that if you drop your phone and that screen breaks and you buy that new part, that screen is introduced to that device by way of this software. They then work together effectively, and we solve the issue that way.
So you've solved it, but you're still pairing, you're still having to take the new part and somehow make it communicate with the phone. Like, I think of parts pairing. When I think of that, I think that I have to make sure that the face of my phone communicates with the rest of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what parts pairing is. Right?
It's basically it's making sure that this new face recognizes the old body and that they're communicating to each other.
Okay.
That has to be done when that's brought in. The point is, we make it available to consumers so that it's not locked out, right? In other words, by easily accessing that tool online, you're able to make that communication once, they recognize each other, and it works effectively.
And the companies that are using parts pairing, because I know it's more than just phone companies, there's others. How do they make sure that they're talking to each other? Are they demanding that they do the pairing of the parts? Or
Kyle,
so I don't know.
yeah, please.
I don't care who answers it. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, so they also have
why.
tools. So
Yeah.
you need a tool that will program it. The question is who can use the tool. These other companies,
Okay.
their approach
Okay.
is only they can use that tool.
And is there, I mean, companies, is it difficult to use? And do some companies want to control that because they want to control the quality of their product? Like, I'm trying to understand how
Yeah, I mean,
difficult it is.
that's an argument that they might use. It really does come down to your word control. Can you control? So, an example, if you go through Apple's program, you buy a new screen online, you give them your serial number. They decide if that serial number is blessed. When you buy a part from them, they basically program your serial number into that part. You get the part in the mail, and then you can only install that part. So, if you have a different one lying on the shelf, you can't use it. And so, if at some point they decide you're not in good standing, you're behind on your bill, or whatever else, they'll just block you from being able to install the part.
Okay. But you don't do that. Google
Correct.
doesn't do that. You figured out a way to put it online so that
The consumer.
I can do it.
Google's tools available online. You just plug in your phone. You go to the
I
website.
can't do it. I
no,
personally can't do it.
You literally could. It's
A
one button.
person could do it.
It's one button.
I
It's very
understand.
easy.
I understand. People are going back to flip phones, people, so just be careful. Be careful you're making these phones too complicated, because we're going back to flips.
I also will just add another part to your
Yeah.
question that somebody had brought up too in a meeting. They talked about their concern that currently they may not, so they were worried about like thermostats and things like that. How are we going to, there may be a point to where there's parts pairing in a thermostat. And I said, if this bill only says that if you have a repair process in place with an authorized dealer and you repair that, it would be included in this bill. But thermostats and things like that, like the Nest, doesn't have a repair process. There isn't a repair process to that.
Okay.
You know, so that wouldn't be, you wouldn't have to, they wouldn't have to worry about that. That wouldn't be included in this because they don't have a repair process. We really captured in this bill that if there's already a repair process, we're just asking you to open it up to individual businesses or people and things like
And
that.
I'm just trying to figure out how difficult it is, because companies are built on their reputations. And Google's built on their reputation. And so you just want to make sure that you're able to protect your reputation.
Yeah.
At the same time, make sure, and if Google's obviously figured it out and is a big company, so appreciate that. All right.
Yeah.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Yeah.
Chair. So, legislative concept 111 is modeled after several other states, and it's got some tweaks to it. So in California's model, which we seem to this legislature drive everything based on California's model, which not all of us agree to. Does California have a pairing prohibition? Does California have the same language that this legislative concept has on pairing?
Chair Solomon, Vice Chair Finley, no, it does not. And I think that's the one piece where we would actually be more pro-consumer and better than California. Because of the issues related to parts pairing, we decided to address that.
Okay, so the parts pairing, and let's cut to the chase. For the most part, we're talking about iPhones. I have an Android.
Okay.
Me too.
Oh, I have an iPhone. But it
So,
is, it is
Like you
broken.
need-
I've cussed this phone a lot. I've thought about smashing it several times. That's irregardless of that.
That has
So
nothing to do with it. It's an Android.
iFixit can fix this phone anytime, any place, probably easily. Because you have full access to all of the bells and whistles and widgets in there. I can't. My mechanic told me I can't even change the air filter in my pickup anymore. He said, you do the politics, I'll do the mechanicing. So I don't do that anymore.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it is a good deal because I kept getting a warning light when I changed it. But so I have a question. iFixit, you talked about, Mr. Nickel, you talked about the relationship. Are you wholly owned, subsidized, or subsidiary of Google?
Good question. No, we're not. We have a business partnership. We're basically a reseller of parts for Google. So we buy screens for the phones from them. We put tools with them and we sell them. So we have a commercial relationship.
Okay, so you can't do that with Apple?
We'd be happy to work with Apple. They've never wanted to work with us. We work with Samsung and Motorola and a number of other manufacturers. We do sell parts for iPhones. We just don't sell them from Apple. We get them elsewhere.
Okay, so when you put on a part on an Apple phone, like you need your phone fixed,
I do.
it will give this warning signal, so your camera still.
It will give you warnings like your air filter warning. It will give you a variety of warnings repeatedly over days that can't be dismissed, and some functionality will be either limited or missing altogether.
So California's bill doesn't provide the consumer protections that you think it should, and so that's why it's in Oregon's bill.
That's correct.
But I can go to any Apple store and have
Freedom of-
Senator Lieber's phone
Freedom
fixed.
of choice.
Could you do that?
You still can with this bill.
Yeah, go to the Apple Store in Bend. Oh, there
She's
isn't
asking
one.
if you'll do that for her
Yeah, I'm going to be happy.
by tomorrow.
Yeah. So I can't take my Ford pickup to a Chevrolet dealer and say, tell me why this button doesn't work and diagnose it for me.
You actually can. And that's because we have a right to repair law on the books for cars that applies. So your local mechanic can get access to all those detailed Ford schematics, any software. And your Chevy dealer probably isn't going to do it, but your local car mechanic can fix both Fords and Chevys because of these laws that are on the books. If that wasn't the case, I don't think Ford would be providing the
You
information.
go to AutoZone, they plug it in, they tell you what's wrong with it, and then you can fix it, or you could take it to a mechanic.
Yeah, we
Or if you've
established
got
my
some-
mechanic has to.
You can go to the dealer.
So fixie for you.
Any other questions this time? I just want to, thank you so much. I just was following the final thought here because a point was brought up about reputation and the company's reputation. An example was given to me that I thought I really wanted to share. The company, the person that was talking with me about their company said, well, we're concerned because if somebody has it fixed at Joe's Brainwave and my phone was doing this and now it's still acting up, and they're going to come back and they're say, I don't want an Apple phone anymore. Darn that Apple. And I said, no, I don't believe so, because if I take my car to a mechanic and I want my water pump fixed and I drive away and my water pump light comes on and the water pump is still acting up, I don't go, darn you, Chevrolet. I say, go back to the mechanic and say, I paid you to fix this. I need it fixed. So that's why I think this is a small business. We have protections in place for business. We've done a lot of work on this. I appreciate the questions. Continue with those questions. And yeah, I just really wanted to, it's a big bill, fourth time being introduced, but we really wanted to walk through the changes because, you know, it's some digestion was needed. So,
Thank you, I appreciate that.
but I thank you all for being here today. I don't see any further questions, so. Oh, ba-do-do.
I don't have a copy of the LC in front of me here.
Okay.
I'm sure y'all have one, but I
share
believe the
it.
reach back was, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Oh.
I think the reach back was to 2015, that was mentioned. Seems like in technology, that's eons away from, 9 years, right? Seems like that's an awful long ways back if you think about the progression of technology. Why are we going back to 2015 rather than saying, hey, from today forward, we want to do this?
Yeah, a couple things. So I think for like a dishwasher, that isn't necessarily the case. Ideally, we would have appliances. I mean, my mom, her refrigerator she's had since I was born. And
Avocado green, because if
it is, yes, it is. Yeah.
My dad had Bernie's Refrigeration and Small Appliance Repair. He told me always buy avocado green.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
there you
sorry.
go. Yeah, exactly. So for appliances, for example, it's important to be able to look back a little further. And that's why we decided to say phones, kind of different technology than appliances or computers. And then also we actually talked to repairers and refurbishers and heard that 10 years is about how far back they need to go, or the oldest products that they get. The second thing I'll say is, as Senator Solomon mentioned, really the policy only requires companies to provide anything to the extent that they are currently offering repairs on those products through their authorized dealers or through their own repair ecosystem. So if, for example, the 2016 computer, the manufacturer themselves don't offer replacement parts, they don't sell them anymore, they aren't giving out the tools, then they wouldn't be covered regardless. It's only if they're currently offering repair for a 2016 product, they then have to provide those parts, tools, and information, not just to their authorized repair people, but to everyone else.
Schools often need to keep technology working for 10 years. They don't have a budget option.
We found that out during COVID.
Yep.
Like 75,000 students didn't have access to a laptop in schools, so.
Well, thank you for your response. It just seems to me, Chair, that that is a long ways back in technology, and if you're only excluding cell phones, there's a lot of other electronic equipment that I think that might be problematic, so
Yeah,
maybe a point we can negotiate.
We can totally chat.
Okay.
I'm happy to chat. Talk more about that. So with that, I don't see any other further questions, so thank you all. Appreciate you coming. With that, I'm going to close the informational meeting on right to repair. And I'm going to